This program deals with themes of an adult nature and is intended for a mature audience.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on the KTPF Community Talk Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for our new weekly radio shows. To accompany the KTPF Community Talk Show, we now have our own free magazine to view online or download for free. Visit our website for more details. Also, the KTPF Community Talk Show is supported by Phenomenon Magazine and Beyond Parazine, available online now.
The KTPF Community Talk Show is sponsored by Dragonos Castle, South Wales, one of the most haunted castles in Wales. For more information on ghostly and ghostly events, including Fright Nights, all-night investigations and hen parties, visit www.mosthauntedcastle.com.
The comments and views expressed on the KTPF Community Talk Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the views of ourselves or of our sponsors.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They've landed.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk Radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Hi, good evening everybody, and welcome to the KTPF Community Talk Show, live from Manchester on www.ktpf.co.uk. I'm happy to say that my name is Suzanne.
I'm Steve.
And I'm more happy to say that...
I'm Amy!
Yes, we're here keeping the paranormal friendly on online and on air every Sunday evening.
Online?
Online? We are online.
Well, a wine, W-I-N-E, on wine.
On wine. I wish I was on wine. Online and on air. And we bring you a relaxed show with no pressure. So just sit back with your favourite beverage or glass of wine and listen whilst we talk about various topics from cryptozoology to UFOs and share information, advice and most importantly friendship. Remember, collaboration, not competition. This show incorporates a wide spectrum within these fascinating subjects, so if you have any questions, then you can use the live interactive chat room or Skype in and speak directly to our guests by adding the ktpf.paranormal show. Later, we will have the rundown of this month's events provided by our sister site at paranormaleventsforyou.com. I'd like to acknowledge those that are listening live tonight in the chat room and also for those that will be listening on our radio replay on our YouTube channel. So, as we said, Andy's back with us tonight, and which is good, which means we'll have his mysterious files back again, won't we, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Alive and well after last week's encounter with undercooked fish.
Undercooked fish. And if you are out there watching, why don't you come in and join us in the chat room and have a chat and what have you to the people that are in there. Now, just to let you know what we've got on tonight, our guest tonight is Dr Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, a Professor Emeritus of Montana State University, who has dedicated her life and career to working with indigenous populations. Dr. Clarke is a Cherokee cross-Choctaw, Cherokee/Choctaw Indian who has been adopted and given traditional names by three Northern Plains tribe, including the Blackfeet, she is known as Woman with Great Knowledge, the North Cheyenne, Walksall Woman, and the Lakota Sioux, Woman who helps people. She spent 7 years traveling from Belize, Honduras, Guatemala and Mexico, immersing herself with indigenous populations, sharing their stories of encounters, sky gods, giants, little people and aliens. And many of the people she spoke to have not been exposed to the media such as books or TV. that describe alien encounters, and they will describe their encounters not dissimilar to the ones that they experience in the US and also in England, including she learned about a man who arrived and departed in a beam of light. So that'd be quite interesting, won't it? Don't you think?
Oh yes.
Be nice to know what she's going to say for herself, and about her explorations.
I find it interesting that she's talking about indigenous people that have not been phased by our modern technology and different stuff. So
no, this is it. So it'd be nice to find out. Maybe we can get a couple of stories from her as well. So
get a little bit for the old magazine.
Well, you never know.
You
never know, Mr. Transcriber there.
Okay.
Good evening, Vectra Man. Nice to see you. Is this a new name from an old visitor, or are you a new person in the chat room? Whoever you are, welcome to you. It's nice to see you there. Hope you have some questions later on. Right, so Andy's been ill all week and finally got better, thankfully.
Yeah.
You've done a spot of painting.
I've been doing some DIY.
DIY. So, and we've got a new 3-piece suite coming in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Stairs next.
He's got the bug at the moment. I know I said about spring cleaning, but you've got bits of it. I don't know. I washed the covers of my 3-piece suite, Andy, and then went out and bought a new 3-piece.
Oh, well, fair enough. That's what you...
I don't know. Now, guys, I must warn you before we go any further. Live stream are being a bit of a bitch. Okay, so
no.
They are. They are.
Calm
Sorry.
down, calm down.
They are. So and I've noticed
to all our Liverpool listeners.
and I've noticed a few things going on with them today in the last hour, which I'm not very happy about. If we do lose you, all you need to do is refresh the page. Okay, being an American production, they do their upgrading and what have you at silly hours. So, well, Ventureman says he's been watching for many weeks and enjoys the show. Only just signed up to chat. Well, it's nice to know.
Oh, welcome.
So, as I say, we're a relaxed show, so anything goes, I must admit. And talking about anything goes, I'm going to hand over to Steve for the observations.
Cheeky. Well, there's your first one anyway.
Thank you. I didn't get them off you quick enough this week.
You didn't. Okay, an old ghost town recently put back on the market after a potential deal for it fell through. After it was auctioned off last year, the historic property in Connecticut is allegedly haunted and is now for sale for $2.4 million. Anybody got a couple of millions to spare?
Nah.
The abandoned village of Jonesville in East Haddon, Connecticut, was once a thriving community in the 1800s that had multiple textile mills. The last mill ceased operation in 1972. It caught fire due to lightning strike. Aerospace millionaire Ray Schmidt eventually purchased the property and turned it into a theme park. The park later closed in 1994 due to pressure from local officials regarding fire damage. A movie and music videos have been filmed there. And the whole thing closed down in 1998. It was later purchased by a hotel developer in 2008 that tried to sell the town in 2013 for $2.9 million. The 62-acre property was auctioned off last October for $1.9, but now the ghost town is back on the market for $2.4 because the deal fell through. Oh, this one don't fall through. It'll be $3 million next week. It's considered a special purpose property given its unique nature of it, and it's driven a lot of traffic. There's quite a large field of considerate interest. Senior Vice President R.M. Bradley brokerage firm Jim Kelly said. Well, make sure you sell it this time, Mr. Kelly. Maybe you can do something with it. I mean, if you see the pictures there, the properties look like they've been kept in good nick, I tell you.
Okay, what's next?
That would be this one.
Okay.
Here we go. There we go. There's your next link. I've got a couple of short ones on here as well.
Good.
The Book of Ghost.
Oh yeah.
Eerie faces and messages discovered in an ancient medieval manuscript of King Arthur and Merlin. The Black Book of Carmarthen is the earliest surviving Welsh manuscript. It contains some of the earliest references to Arthur and Merlin. Believed ghost images were in the original, but erased by a 16th century owner of the book, probably a man called Jasper Griffith. Stunned researchers had found one of the UK's most important manuscripts is full of ghosts. During the 1250s, the Black Book of Carmarthen is the earliest surviving medieval manuscript written solely in Welsh. It contains some of the earliest references, as we said, to Arthur and Merlin. Now researchers have found a series of hidden faces and messages, and it's easy to think we know all we can know about a manuscript like the Black Book, but to see these ghosts from the past brought back to life in front of our eyes has been incredibly exciting, said Mara Williams of Cambridge Department of Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic. The book is a collection of 9th and 12th century poetry, along with religious and secular lines, and draws on the tradition of the Welsh folk heroes and legends of the Dark Ages. Williams and Professor Paul Russell from Cambridge Department of Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic, ASNC, believe that the 16th century owner of the book, probably a man named Jasper Griffiths, as we said, erased centuries worth of additional verse, doodles and marginalia, which had been added to the manuscript as it changed hands through the years. Using a combination of ultraviolet light and photo editing software, the 16th century owner's penchant for erasure has been partly reversed to reveal snatches of poetry. Currently the texts are very fragmentary and in need of much more analysis, although the researchers say they seem to be the continuation of a poem on the preceding page, with a new poem added at the foot of the page. The drawings on the reverse that were in the process of recovering demonstrate the value of giving these books another look, said Williams. Do you know the book, Andy?
I saw that during the week when I was doing my bit of research on my stuff. I hadn't seen it before that, but yeah, it's very interesting. I know all these sort of manuscripts sometimes get over or reused. The paper is so precious that they'll rewrite something on top of what was already there, or make amendments or changes to. But yeah, it's very interesting.
So it could quite possibly be that, and nothing to do with the original manuscript.
Well, again, no, I suspect possibly that it's just reused. Basically, the paper's been reused.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Scientists at Edinburgh University have given the funding by the Scottish Government to carry out research into paranormal activity surrounding Neolithic ruins following the success of Outlander. Oh yes. In the first book in Diana Gabaldon's fictional Outlander series, Claire Randall, on her second honeymoon with her husband in Scotland after World War II, visits Craignaddon, a make-believe prehistoric stone circle near Inverness, that falls through the stones and into the 18th century. Yesterday it was reported that the Royal Botanic Gardens is to be analysed for signs of pixies and elves, after claims that supernatural spirits live in the grounds. Paranormal experts will visit the site in Edinburgh over the next 2 weeks with sensitive equipment in an attempt to detect if there really are fairies at the bottom of the garden. The Scottish Government has now thrown their weight behind scientists at Edinburgh University and will plough several £1 million into the supernatural research over the next 5 years. I'm sure that's not something the voters want to hear with the election coming up. Let's vote for us, put us in government, and we'll give them loonies over there several £1 million to find fairies.
I didn't even think you could actually read it, because when you first click on it, there's a survey thing or something. But if you click the skip survey, you can read the
it does.
The rest of it.
You can get, isn't it? You can get under it. It just seems.
Oh, Viscount's arrived.
Hello, Viscount.
Hello, Vizzy. It just seems funny that a government would actually be ploughing millions of pounds into the subject, especially considering that most people, although they kind of believe in most of it, they are not willing to stand up and say so. Especially the powers that be. And there we go. We're off again. Wonder why old houses are always haunted?
Yeah.
Well, Clarkson University might have that answer for you. According to the April 2nd report from the Medical Daily and the April 4th report from the Times, a team of researchers from Clarkson University are investigating the links between houses, hauntings and indoor air quality. Why? Well, it's well known that toxic mold can trigger psychosis, and they believe that it's the making people see ghosts. The group expects to collect their data through the summer, so they are still trying to get all the facts and samples, and the group will be publishing their results at the end of their study. Where were they looking for these samples? Well, Dr. Shane Rogers and his group have been in New York, measuring air quality in buildings that are reported to be haunted. One place that the group has been is the Frederick Remington Art Museum. So Rogers wants to link hauntings and pollutants together. It's been known that people have reported having depression and anxiety and other effects while they were exposed to bad indoor quality because of mould. So it's an interesting theory saying that mould is causing psychological effects that make people see ghosts. What do you think, guys? Is it down to the air pollution?
Wonder.
Nah.
Well, I would say no as well. I mean, it is well known that some pollutants...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they can make you feel rather ill, but
Yeah,
you start ingesting enough of this mould. And there was, funny enough, there was an article some time ago I read that was fascinating about old books, that the mould that can sometimes grow in old books can actually cause you to trip out. And I've got quite a few old books here, so it might explain my strangeness, you know.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
have you seen what Viscountess put? He said, that means there are millions of psychotic people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Well,
definitely.
there are. That's another story.
Also, we did report this, was it last year or the year before, I can't remember now, that there was a young lady that actually died,
Yes,
a ghost hunter,
We
because
did.
of
in America.
some kind of mould and stuff in the venue that she went to, and it got into her lungs, the spores. So please be careful out there.
Yeah.
There is something to this.
Yeah, so please be
Mould and
careful when
stuff.
you're going into these old places.
Yep, here we go. We're off into space now. Mars mystery does flowing water called red planet's dark streaks. The Woodlands, Texas, Mars' mysterious dark streaks continue to intrigue and puzzle scientists. Over the past several years, Mars orbiting spacecraft have spotted dark finger-like features that scientists call reoccurring slope linear, or RSL for short. I like the short version better. There are dark flows possibly caused by liquid water found at many locations throughout low and middle latitudes on Mars. More than 120 candidate and confirmed RSL sites have been discovered, with some sites containing 1,000 or more individual RSLs. Yet another eye-catching manifestation on Mars is the slope streak, which can propagate down steep slopes on the red planet. Slope streaks could be caused by dust avalanches, scientists say, and they differ from RSLs in morphology. I like big words, I'm getting used to them now. Setting the mode of occurrence, but the mechanism of the slope streak formation remains up for grabs. Some researchers, for the example, invoke a wet mode for the feature's origin of porcellation of brine, salty water to us, in the shallow surfaces on Mars. So, was there water on Mars? Was it salty? Was it fresh?
Probably was.
I think probably there was at some point.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was looking for a Mars story because it usually happens every week. I couldn't find anything. I missed that one.
I'm always finding Mars
That's
stories. Most of the time I just ignore them because they're rather stupid. They're like,
Oh yeah, look at the silly ones. As you know,
look at
these
this
strange
finger.
objects
Look at this
I was in a week
statue.
where a strange object
and all the rest of
somewhere.
it. But
So it's interesting about the water. Of course, that's always been a question in conspiracy and discussion. Is there water on Mars? Because if there's water, then there's a good chance there was at some point in life. And also, it makes us going to and from Mars much easier if there's already water there. But if you remember, of course, back in the late 1800s, there was this whole idea there being actual canals on Mars, which led to the War of the Worlds story, of course, but they weren't actually there. It was just wishful thinking, really. I'm trying to think of the astronomer. He was very... Percival L. thought he saw the canals on Mars, and I think more likely to be actually a problem with his eyesight than actually canals on Mars. But there you go.
Figment of his imagination. Either that, or he could have been looking at these dark streaks.
Okay, yes, possibly.
There we go. Ghostlings going on. Continue to spook Pembrokeshire motorists. This time on a quiet coastal road. Paranormal investigators at Pembrokeshire Beyond have received 2 reports of what appears to be a young man running in front of cars at Newgale before disappearing out of sight. It follows similar roadside hauntings between Milford Haven and Haverfordshire West.
Try again.
Haverford West. Thank you. In February, where 3 motorists witnessed a shadowy figure run out in front of them. A driver who wished to remain anonymous was travelling past Newgale Beach car park at around 10 p.m. on Saturday, March the 14th, when they saw a young man in a red jacket run in front of the car and then disappear into the rock face. The driver said, "I did not collide with this person, but just saw someone literally run in front of me and into the rock. I was greatly disturbed and it shook me up, to be honest. I'm not a believer in such things." Another motorist, who also wanted to remain anonymous, had similar experience on the same stretch of road just after 9 p.m. on Saturday, the 21st of March. There were 4 people in the car, and both the driver and the front seat passenger witnessed the man in front of the vehicle vanish into the cliff opposite. The driver said it was so quick, but it was clearly a person. I would say it was a man dressed in flares and a jacket with longish blonde hair, like a surfer type. Well, there you go. What was you doing up there, Vizzy?
How many more you got left?
2, I think.
He says, "Oh no, not another story in Pembroke. The local group must be looking for new business, in my opinion."
Yes, it was Vizzy trying to drum up business for the castle.
Is that your last one?
No.
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 Time's fleeting.
I know it's fleeting. I told you. There we go. There's another one.
Bloody hell, you're on 7 now.
666. Years in the marketing. This is Ireland's most haunted house. A group of paranormal investigators claim to have encountered major temperature drops and electromagnetic field spikes at a house said to be Ireland's most haunted. Irish ghost hunters visit Loftus Hall in Wexford's Hook Peninsula to carry out several paranormal investigations this March. The spectre seekers found major temperature drops as well as significant spikes in electromagnetic fields in some areas of the house, they say. Our team is scientific. We don't work with psychics or mediums. Tim Barco, location manager and lead investigator with IGH, told Independent Travel. We go in with our equipment and try to debunk everything before we say it's paranormal. But there are things that happen at Loftus that we just couldn't debunk. These things include mysterious footsteps, readings indicating an energy source close by, and response on K2 meter, which is an EMF meter, which seems to be in connection to our questions, Barco says. Our investigation left us with more questions than answers. Of course, you might say that such reports are coincidence, unverifiable, impossible to replicate, or just plain hogwash. But they still make a good story. Loftus Hall cast a desolate dash on the Hook Peninsula, and somewhat creepy. There is to have been a dwelling on the site since 1350, almost 666 years. Its most chilling story concerns a dark stranger who called to the mansion one foggy night in 1765. Lost on the Hook, the stranger was invited into the then Totton household and soon found himself playing cards and making an impression on the daughter of the house, Anne Tottingham. As the stakes grew higher and dropped her cards on the floor, dipping down to recover her hand, she saw that the stranger had a cloven hoof. Unmasked as the devil, the stranger is said to have bolted through the roof in a ball of fire. The very same roof has been irreparable ever since, says Adrian Quigley, owner of Loftus Hall. And that, as they say,
Is
is that.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. So that's your observations for this week. Talking about planets, I just mentioned this one that I found. I suppose it could be my 2 penneth for the week. My tuppence. Shut up! I knew I shouldn't have repeated that. I saw it on the news earlier. Multiple studies addresses riddles of the moon's origins. Apparently, they're saying now that the moon may have been formed by a collision between Earth and an object that was strikingly similar in composition to our own planet. This could help resolve why Earth and moon rocks are much more similar than we would expect from this giant impact hypothesis. The study is one of 3 published in the prestigious journal Nature. 2 further research papers in the issue report subtle, previously unseen differences in lunar rocks. Scientists say they paint a consistent and much clearer picture of our satellite's history. The modelling study done by scientists from Israel and France precisely simulates the turmoil of the of the early inner solar system and quantifies the variety of collisions that might have occurred. In its early stages, the proto-Earth would have been subjected to a string of brutal collisions with other wannabe planets. According to our best understanding, the last of these was a cataclysmic tangle with a planetary body just 10 times lighter than Earth, and the result debris eventually clumped together to make the moon. It says insufficiently alien. The problem is most of what became the moon should have come from the imposter, and based on our existing knowledge of what was flying, where at that time that imposter was thought to be a very different type of planet. So if the impactor had a different composition from the Earth, we should expect the moon to have a different composition, said Dr Ardy Sixkiller, one of the study's authors. He told the Nature podcast that this is not the case. You can find out more. I'll give you the link for you to have a look at if you're interested in that one. But this is what they say. Could that possibly be, you know, when they say that one day the Earth's going to disappear and what have you, like there was talk about that, isn't there? Some people believe that. Could that mean that Earth making the moon, could that be where aliens come from? Just a little throwaway bit that I'll put there. You never know. Little throwaway bit. What do you think, Andy?
No comment.
Just a little throwaway bit.
But they also say that the whole galaxy is starting to shrink again. So it shrink back down to the dot where we all disappear, and then it goes bang and starts all over again.
Yes, you never know.
Yeah.
Right, okay. What we're going to do now is I'm going to just play you a little advert while I give Ardy a call.
And a quick call there. Dave said it said that the moon is hollow.
Well, there's something for you. So
and cheese, but we don't know that one.
Right, so we'll see you after these words, and hopefully we'll have Ardy on the phone. Speak to you in a moment.
The Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Services Ghost Store is a one-stop shop for all of your ghost hunting gadgetry needs. Run by ghost hunters for ghost hunters, the shop is filled with all of the latest in investigation equipment, shipped in from all around the world, from high-quality digital dictaphones to EMF pumps, infrared illuminators to laser grid pens, CCTV equipment to data loggers. All of our equipment has already been imported, so you can buy it safe in the knowledge that there will be no hidden costs. And with our postage promise, you'll never pay more than the actual postage price. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk/ghost store.
We're having problems here. Is it ringing? Hold on. Let me see if I can do this again. We're having problems. Hey there, Andy.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Here, I'm finally listening. Yeah, sorry, listening.
Bear with me.
Yeah, we're better.
I've got to ring Montana.
While you're ringing Montana,
Yes.
if it's they've said about it said that the moon is hollow. Could that possibly be where they get the idea that the moon is actually a spaceship
Hello,
and not
Andy.
a planet?
We've had that sort of thing many times before. The idea of the moon's hollow, the moon's this, the moon's not supposed to be there. You know, I don't know why it would be a spaceship. It's a very large spaceship, I must admit. I mean, it could be tend to be the Death Star, I suppose. But
It's an ideal place to monitor us, isn't it?
Right, let's
Okay,
go
just
then.
stopped.
We've got Ardy on the phone. Good evening, Ardy. Or good day to you.
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I just hope everyone can hear you all right. Just make sure if you'd like to say hello to everybody in the chat room.
Hello, everyone.
Right, hopefully that's fine. Can you hear okay, Steve?
There's a long delay on mine, so
All right, okay.
yeah, she's a little bit crackly, but she's okay.
That's fine. Okay,
Yep.
well, welcome to the show, Ardy. It's great to have you on. And
Yeah.
I've had a look at your website, and it does sound very interesting what you've been doing. But first of all, am I right in thinking that did I read right that you are Cherokee Cross Choctaw?
Yes,
And also, would you share with us a little bit about yourselves and your professional background?
yes, I'm a professor emeritus at Montana State University. Prior to that, I was prior to coming to Montana State, I was a teacher, a counselor, a therapist, school administrator, a junior college and university administrator, and a professor. Spent my whole life working in education and doing research. But the last 10 years of my career at Montana State, I was doing research with high-risk youth and families.
I believe you're retired now, aren't you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, obviously, I've seen your books. Haven't read them, I'll be honest with you, but I've seen your books and I've read what you said on your website. First of all, what inspired you to explore the UFO experiences and the Star People legends of the Mesoamericans?
Well, I've been interested in star people since I was a child. I would hear stories about the stars and the star people as a part of the ancient legends of my people, and like all children, you put those stories aside and go on and graduate from high school and the university and you start your career.
Yeah.
But when I first came to Montana State University, I would go out as a part of my duties as the director of the Center for Bilingual Education.
So she's back breaking up.
Yeah.
Recruit Native American students
Yeah.
to come on campus to be teachers
Yeah.
and principals. And on my first trip out, I met a person who took me up into the mountains and said, if we're lucky, they'll come. And I said, well, who will come? And they said, well, our people, our ancestors. And it just spurred me to wonder about, did other tribes have similar stories? And so I set about finding out when I would travel, when I go to conferences, when I go out recruiting students, wherever I was, if I had an opportunity in an informal situation, I would ask those questions.
Yeah.
And I began collecting stories.
Right. Can you tell us about one or two of them, these stories that you've got? Because you mentioned before about I've seen on other interviews where people talked about a beam of light, and we're talking about people that don't have anything to do with TVs and everything. Do you know what I mean? And
Right.
you know, they've not seen the media, but they're talking about people coming with beams of light.
Right. That was a common experience among people I interviewed. There was an old legend. I mean, there are many old legends of the sky people and the sky gods that came down on a beam of light throughout Mesoamerica. And the same thing in terms of contemporary stories. The individuals are first seen as they will be balls of light and then morph into people, so that that's when they have their interaction.
Right, okay. What did you think about these stories that you heard?
Well, I think that they're honest stories. I think that what is more compelling about these stories is, as you said, these are individuals who haven't had access to all the UFO shows and all the information that we have in the Western world. You know, if you turn on TV in America, there's probably a half a dozen shows aired daily on satellite television about UFOs and aliens and ancient aliens and government cover-ups and all sorts of things. But I was interviewing a group of people that didn't have access to that information. And they were lucky to have access to school. And so, you know, I was interviewing a group of people who were describing similar events as to what you see in Western society, and yet they had never seen any of the films or the TV or books that we have available to us.
Yeah, I can understand that. It must have been fascinating hearing them and, you know, speaking to these people.
Well, I was humbled by the people, you know. I grew up in an environment that was very similar to what the Maya and the Zapotec live today, you know, a very simple life of self-sufficiency and not having access to running water or the kinds of things that we take for granted today in our society. But the people are very close-knit families. They are very happy. They have their little gardens and their pigs and chickens and turkeys and their fruit trees, and they are survivors.
We've got Dave Lloyd in the chat room. He's asking, what did these people say that they looked like? Were they humanoid or grey type beings?
Well, you know, if you read the book, you'll see that there are a variety of different kinds of encounters. There are the stories of the little people. There are stories of giants. There are stories of lizard, almost like a lizard type entity.
Yeah.
Tall people, the grays that you normally hear about in the literature too.
Yeah.
So there were, you know, and that is even more interesting to me because here are a group of people that don't have knowledge about those things in our world. Here they're describing the same kinds of entities that you hear about in the U.S. or in England or wherever you are, you know, in the Western world.
I can imagine. You know, during your investigative and research work into these situations, did you have any unusual experiences yourself that you can relate to?
Well, I did in Copan. I was taken into the ancient site at night by someone who took me in there and told me that it was likely that if that the ancients would come, and as I sat there, this huge spacecraft that was like a wheel came over the plaza, and these balls of light came out and danced around the plaza and then formed a straight line in front of me, and one of them broke away and came right up to me. And then they went back to the spacecraft and they were gone. And the Maya people there took it as to mean that I was one of them.
Wow.
You're actually talking about something similar to Ezekiel's wheel.
Did you get that? Are you talking to something?
No, I can't hear. I can
Right.
hear him talk.
He said, are you talking about something similar to Ezekiel's wheel?
Am I talking about what?
Something similar to something called Ezekiel's wheel.
In the Bible.
In the Bible.
Oh, Ezekiel's
Yeah.
wheel. It would be something similar to that, yes.
Ah, interesting.
Interesting.
What I find interesting there is we're talking about people that are not particularly religious from our point of view, Christianity way.
Yeah.
And yet they're experiencing and seeing exactly the same things that have been reported.
Yeah. Steve was saying that these people wouldn't actually be Christians like we are. Like.
But no, that isn't true. The majority of them are Catholics.
Right. Okay. So they would know about Ezekiel's wheel.
I don't know if they would know about that or if they would translate it some other way. You know, when you go to their churches, you find that often there's a combination of Catholicism and their own native religions, and in other communities it's strictly Catholicism. So it's really a mixture of different kinds of things, as well as, you know, you have the Pentecostal churches making inroads, as well as the Mormons and the Jehovah Witnesses. So there's a lot of variety, but the Maya people are very religious.
Really, that's nice to hear in some respect. Have you got a question again, Steve? No, Andy?
Not the good time.
No, I'll carry on then. Have you arrived at any conclusions as to what all this means?
Well, I think we're definitely being visited. I don't think there's any doubt about it, and I think that I think that Native people are much more familiar with these kinds of events, because they are more likely to be watching the stars and the environment around them. They're very much in tune to the earth and the sky and the cosmos, and as a result, they have encounters that others do not have, simply because they are more alert to what's going on in the environment, as opposed to being, on their smartphones and their computers and all those sorts of things, which they do not have,
Yeah, I can...
Any ideas as to why they're visiting?
Do you have any ideas to why they're visiting?
Well, I've been told a number of things. I've been told that they are simply keeping an eye on what's going on, that this planet is a gem of a planet, and they're more interested in the planet than they are in us.
Yeah.
That we're not their priority. I've been told that some of the experiments that are going on because the aliens themselves have progressed so much that they are no longer a biological entity, but are mixed with technology and biology, and in doing so, they crossed the line and they lost their ability to be emotional and to have more human-like qualities, and that they are conducting research because the native people, their DNA is closest to the sky people, and therefore they take samples and different kinds of serums and blood, and in their process of trying to regain what they have lost. There are just a variety of stories I've heard of why they're here and why they're, some of them say, well, they're nothing but scientists.
So it sounds as though they're trying to recreate themselves.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, do you feel that paranormal and possibly spiritual aspects of these experiences are sufficient? And could these be areas that are overlooked by mainstream ufologists?
I'm not sure what you ask. I'm trying to. Would you state that again?
Right. Basically, on a paranormal or and possibly spiritual aspect, yeah. Would you say these experiences are significant and could be areas that mainstream ufologists are overlooking?
The spiritual side.
Well, I think that this group of people, the indigenous people of the world, has certainly been overlooked by mainstream ufologists.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, a hard scientist, somebody who demands proof and who demands some kind of, if you don't have a dozen witnesses, if you don't have people corroborating your story, if you don't have circles in the ground or marks on the ground or something of that nature, just discount these stories. And as a result of their research approach, people just walk away. They just don't have anything to do with them.
Mm.
We call that an etic approach to research, one that looks at things and makes draws their own conclusions.
Yeah.
Where I'm a social scientist, so I take the role of the emic researcher, where I listen to the stories and I record what I hear, but I don't make judgments about what people tell me.
No.
I'm a fairly good judge of whether somebody is telling the truth or not, and so I listen to the stories and I record what I hear. And a lot of it, too, my access comes that I'm also indigenous. And so that makes a difference with people.
Right. We've got Alison Dunlop in the chat room. She's asking, have you heard any stories of benevolent alien beings who are trying to help and heal us?
Well, when I think of benevolent overall to help the humankind, no. But to help individuals, I've heard stories. In fact, in the book, there's a story about a man who he was sent home by the doctors and told that he had a few weeks to live. He had lung cancer so badly. His wife had told me about him, and she said that she and her sister had his side 24/7 because he had such difficulty in breathing, and they had to be there to try to make his life bearable.
Mm.
And one night a UFO went over their village and it hovered for a few seconds and then moved on. And everybody in the village was very concerned about what this UFO was doing there, but there were dozens of people who saw it. And later that night, the man talks about this light. The night he was awakened from sleep by this bright light, and into his little hut came these balls of light. And he said one centered over the top of his head, and the others accumulated on his chest area. And he said it was burning so badly, but that he didn't have the strength to cry out in pain. And his wife and sister-in-law stood there and watched this go on. And as they finished their work, the balls of light transferred into men who bowed to him and left, and the bright lights went away. And all of a sudden, he realized that he breathe. He feels great.
Mm.
And he gets up and he's walking, and then he walks outside. He walks around the village. The next day, he goes to his doctor, and the doctor says there's no sign of the lung cancer. and says that it's a miracle. But he said that they were star angels that came down and healed him, and that the people from the sky are angels, and they came to heal. And he says, I believe in the power of prayer, and you should pray too, he told me. So that's one case of obviously a benevolent alien.
How long do you think they've been visiting us?
Well, I think since the beginning of time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. There's your answer to that question, Andy. I've heard that many native people have strong traditions and beliefs in Bigfoot, and that there could be a possible connection relating to UFO sightings. Can you share your thoughts on this possible connection?
Well, in Mexico, I came across a couple of incidents where people told me about the hairy ones that lived in the jungle, and that on the nights that the UFOs come and the giants get out of the UFOs, the hairy ones start to cry, and you can hear their cries all over the jungle, and it's like the giants from the sky are chasing the hairy ones, and they believe that the giants placed the hairy ones here, and that they are coming back to check on them and to perform experiments on them, and the hairy ones don't want anything to do with it.
Right. Do you think that they're actually observing us, or are they actually affecting our history and development?
I think they're observing us. I don't think they affect our history and development.
No.
No, I don't think that.
You wouldn't go. You wouldn't go to the theory that we are actual aliens ourselves.
Would you go to the theory that we are actually aliens? Some people think that.
I think there's a strong possibility that exists.
Wow.
You know, there are stories among American Indians of you know, their ancestors coming from the sky. Even among the Yup'ik up in Alaska, the Eskimo tell stories of coming on these strange ships to the area of Alaska and northern Canada. The Maya, some of the Maya elders tell me they came from the sky. That the ancient astronaut theory is wrong, in the sense that aliens didn't come here and enslave the Maya to build these cities. Aliens came here, but they stayed and they built the cities, and they are their descendants. So there's a variety of stories out there that, you know.
Yeah. Now, you live in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, and with your husband.
Right.
And is it your husband called Kip?
Yes.
Right. Your dog, your Lhasa Apso, Prairie Rose, and a Maine Coot cat called Rez Perez.
Right.
Do you ever see any? It does sound like a happy family. Do you ever see anything in the Rocky Mountains?
Oh yes. Montana is a favorite place for UFOs, and I think there's two reasons for that. Number one, we have a large military base here, an Air Force base. And we also have a lot of land. Montana, I think, is the third largest state in the nation. But we have less than 1 million people in the state. So, you know, when you're talking about, you know, there are not very many people in Montana. And you can drive for miles and miles and miles and never see another car or another person. So, you know, this is a very rural area.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think that they feel safe in coming here and doing the same thing in the Dakotas and Wyoming. Colorado, not so much anymore, but there's a lot of sightings in Colorado as well, because there just are not a lot of people that would be reporting sightings.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned the Maya people. Do do you have any solutions to why they left their cities?
Well, I think that, scientists are convinced that there was 100-year drought in this area.
Mm-hmm.
It came all the way up into the southwest of what is now the United States, and covered Mexico. And their cities were large. I mean, they held, some of them, 100 to 200,000 people.
Wow.
And as a result, they could no longer afford to feed that many people. They could no longer afford to live in those cities.
No.
And so they simply disappeared in the jungle. At the time that Cortez went on his rampage throughout this part of the world, there were only 2 Maya cities that were still inhabited, and they were very small cities. All the rest of the Maya had, for all intents and purposes, gone into the jungle and disappeared. And there's one group of Maya that were not even discovered until 1958. They went so far into the jungle, and when they were found, they were still practicing their old ways and living in the old way. And so it's not hard for me to believe that, there's still 15 million Maya living in that part of the world. And so the Maya are alive and well.
Mm.
That's good to hear.
It is good
That's
to
good
hear.
to hear.
Yeah. Andy would like to know, do you know anything about the Skinwalker Ranch story?
Well, I've read about the Skinwalker Ranch story, but, there's nothing I could add to it other than what you've read. Because I'm not, my research doesn't take me in that direction.
It doesn't? Okay.
I'm more interested in finding out stories that have never been told.
Yeah. Yes.
Than retelling another story.
So, David Lloyd is asking, is there a lot of animal mutilations reported in Montana?
There have been a number of them, David, but it's not a regular event. They're scattered but one of the interesting things, if you read my book, you'll see that animal mutilations or animal abduction is not just confined to cattle and horses.
Mm.
I've been told stories of buffalo, elk, polar bears, a whale, and a crocodile, to name a few of the animals that people have seen abducted. And the interesting part of it is, I remember this one man telling me, he said, who would ever see a polar bear abducted? You would have to be in the right time at the right place. And he said, I happened to be there. He said, cattle and horses belong to people, but a polar bear belongs to no one. And he's right about that. When you start talking about wildlife, we have no idea how many of them are being abducted and mutilated.
Mm.
But they simply go unreported because no one is in a place to see them. 2 snowmobilers told me about both of their they were out following their trap lines, and both of their snowmobiles quit, which they thought unusual, but they had come prepared, and they pitched a tent, and they had their sleeping bags with them, and they were eating dinner when all of a sudden they saw this craft come, and as it came, there a herd of elk started running out of the trees and racing away from this craft, and all of a sudden a beam came down, and a lone elk was beamed up into the craft, and they watched it struggle and kick and fight, and yet there is nothing that could be done. The animal couldn't escape.
Yeah.
So, and it just so happened, they said, they were going to wait until the next day, and it was a 20-mile walk back to their cabin, and they didn't want to do it at night, so that's why they spent the night. And they said when they go out, they always go prepared if something happens.
Mm.
And so this night their snowmobiles quit, but the next morning they started right up. There was nothing wrong with their snowmobiles.
Good.
But perhaps the UFO being in the vicinity caused them to quit working.
Yeah. Now you mentioned your books. You've written 2 books. Well, 3 with your children's books. Sisters of the Blood and that. But on these stories, there's one entitled "The Encounters with Star People: Untold Stories of American Indians," and then you've got your recent book, "Sky People: Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in Mesoamerica." Can you tell our listeners, let our listeners know where they can find out more information about getting these books and more about you?
You can get them on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're available there, and I know they're available in the UK.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have Barnes and Noble or not, but Barnes and Noble also carries the books at their website. And I would like to invite your listeners, to write me. A lot of my readers write me, and I follow up on questions with them, and or if you have a story you want to tell me, I'm happy to hear it. I don't have a staff; it's just me, and so I might take a day or 2 for me to get back to you.
Yeah.
In the summer, maybe a little bit longer. I have a cabin way up in the mountains, and I go there in the summers, and I don't have access to internet. There's no internet there. You can't. It's in a mountain canyon, and there's no way to get internet in there. There's no towers or anything.
Okay.
And the telephone company doesn't offer it. I do have a phone, but the telephone company doesn't offer internet. So we live out here in an area. I live in an area that's pretty remote and primitive by some people's standards, I guess. If you're in small towns and cities, you can get internet, but
okay. And if
not even dial-up up there.
If anyone wants to find out more about you and your work, what's your website again?
www.sixkiller.com.
Yep. Okay.
And they can write me at Ardy, ARDY, at sixkiller.com.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Hear from people.
giving us your time. Okay. Ardy?
Yes.
Thank you for giving us your time this evening.
Oh, thank you, and thank your listeners and your chat room people.
Okay.
Love hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was Ardy in a remote area. Very remote. No internet. What would we do without the internet these days? Sorry it was a short interview, guys, but it was a bit crackly and in stages. So, but then again, she wasn't really telling us much, was she?
No, she wanted us to refer to her books.
Yeah, which you can understand.
Which is fair enough. Well, I've always thought that the Mayans died out, so there was no Mayans. Now she tells us there's 1,500 of them out there, which is really good. What do you reckon, Andy?
Didn't we?
Nice to have had a bit more detail about some of the actual stories she was told by the natives.
Yeah, it would have been nice, I must admit. But
it was all like, let's refer to my book, let's refer to the book.
Yeah.
Okay, I also found her brushing off the Skinwalker legend mysterious. I mean, it's a Native American story.
Yeah, going on to that Skinwalker Ranch thing, we did actually, it's in Utah. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's one that's in Utah. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, that's the one that's actually considered in the film and research. But the Skinwalker legend itself, I mean, it's a Native American legend, this idea of this creature that can change its appearance, and hence Skinwalker.
You were asking me about this recently, whether we've had anybody on the show talking about this. We did have somebody back in 2010. Did we? No, sorry, not 2010. 2014, October 2014. Paul Dell Roberts, he's a Fortean investigator. He's actually investigated scientifically the Skinwalker Ranch, and we do brush on it in the interview. You'll find that on Radio Replay. He's with a group called HPI International, haunted and paranormal investigations, and they've done over 900 investigations. We had quite a bit to talk about, so we brushed on over the Skinwalker Ranch. So it would be nice to get somebody on to talk specifically about that.
The Skinwalker in some tribes is supposed to be their medicine man. Gone wrong, gone bad.
Is it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right, okay. I have something completely different in my mind.
Where was you going?
No, sorry. I was thinking of something morbid and
Zombie-like
sort of. You know,
no,
the ranch where they found all them bodies or something.
Now the said medicine man has the power to turn himself into an animal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been used as the name of this ranch. I think it's called the Sherman Ranch in actual fact, but some of the stories of strangeness that are centered around this ranch include sort of overly large animals, which not that may have been humans, sort of transfixed into another animal form as part of the story. But there's all sorts of aliens, sightings, strange lights, anomalous sounds, and the like. There's a film made recently, which, like most films, takes things completely out of context and over exit with people actually vanishing in the film. That doesn't happen in the reality of the story, if you like. I just thought it's the Sixkiller part of it. Not Sixkiller, who's saying that? The Skinwalker part of it is American native legend, and
known as the Sherman Ranch.
Yes.
Is that the one? Also known as
Yeah.
Sherman Ranch.
That's the place. That's the place.
Right. Okay. Claims about.
But the aspect I was asking her about was the fact that the Skinwalker is a Native American myth, and I wonder if maybe perhaps aliens were using this way of disguising themselves to visit us without us noticing, because they were disguising themselves as humans. If there was any kind of connection, and she kind of just brushed it off, saying, "Oh, she couldn't handle more. It was already in the media." Well, what was she referring to?
Yeah, Dave just said the Skinwalker Ranch seems to be like an alien reserve.
Yes, it's a hot spot of all sorts of. The interesting thing about it, what I've read, is that it shows what we would describe as alien activity and paranormal ghostly activity at the same time at the same location. So it's very odd that there is this place that doesn't even kind of fit into usual categorizations. We either say places are haunted, or there's alien evidence of visitations going on nearby. This place seems to have elements of both going on in it.
I did read a story once, but I can't remember what tribe they were with. But there was 4 Native Americans out somewhere, and all of a sudden they were attacked by what they describe as 3 skinwalkers, and they actually raced to the back to their pickup, locked themselves in, and drove off, and they were still chasing the truck for miles.
Well, I found. Sorry.
Cool.
I found a bit here from Paul Dow Roberts called "Facing Death at the Skinwalker Ranch." Just to give you an idea what he's written here. Chantal Abadaka looks at me and asks, "Are you scared?" I look at her and calmly said, "Yes." What is there to be scared about at Skinwalker Ranch? Lots of things. But before I talk about the scary incident, let's start from the beginning. The day in October the 4th, 2008, Saturday. The time is 900 hours. At my door at our HPI paranormal investigators Chantel Apodaca and Lisa Hanley. My local scouting missions can have up to 30 investigations intended, but that when the distance is far, the scouting mission party can be very small. It goes on to talk about what happened, basically.
Maybe we can get him back to specifically talk about skinwalkers.
So
that would be interesting, certainly.
If you want to have a read of that he's put there,
Well, I was just reading. I was reading this shit last week as well, during the week, that it was actually being purchased by an investigation company or someone who was actually rather wealthy, wanted to investigate the place and actually bought it to observe the phenomena that was going on there and try and examine it scientifically. So, I don't know what came of all that, but it was only something I just came across recently.
It's all fenced off and everything, and you can't actually get up there anymore.
Right, yeah.
I think he was telling us about sometime we were actually going up alongside the road, which runs parallel to it, and that's when they came in contact with a UFO.
Well, let me just read this little bit. I mean, it's a bit early for my section, but I'm going to read this to you anyway. So I've just found online, the Las Vegas-based scientists study Skinwalker Ranch. A team of scientists based in Los Angeles have been conducting a study that may be different from any other study ever tried. The research is focused on a ranch in rural Utah, where for some 50 or more years, paranormal activity has been reported, including UFOs, Bigfoot, mutilated animals, and poltergeists. Some call the place the Skinwalker Ranch, and George Knapp of I-Team is the only journalist allowed to visit the property. Then it goes into more detail about how it all came about. While Executive Gregory Todd, one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of northwestern Utah residents who claim to have seen weird objects, call them UFOs, over their homes in the past 50 years. The Utah Basin has also been a hotbed of other strange activity, including Bigfoot encounters and mutilated animals. In a basin known for its array of unexpected phenomena, the epicenter of high strangeness seems to be the picturesque spread known to many as Skywalker Ranch. Skywalker Ranch, as George Lucas.
Luke Skywalker.
Native Americans who live near the property have advised members to steer clear because they say it is the path of the Skinwalker, an evil force. Okay, the last family to live on the spread lasted only 20 months. On the first day back in 1994, they were terrorized by unseen intelligence that played mind games with them, shadowy figures inside their house, objects that moved on their own, disembodied voices, and bad things happening to their animals, beginning with the cattle and the bulls that disappeared, and others that had been carved up with surgical precision in broad daylight. A gigantic wolf has attacked one of the calves and was tracked through the mud, but the track seemed to stop as if the animal had evaporated into thin air. 3 dogs were vaporized after. This is see, 3 dogs were vaporized after while chasing blue orbs of light in a pasture. So often there's bad grammar, but yeah, the dogs vaporized apparently. In 1995, the ranch came to the attention of NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, based in Las Vegas. NIDS bought the property, this is what I was reading before, and began an unprecedented scientific study. Observation posts were built, video cameras were installed and operated, scientific personnel and former lawmen were there on the property 24/7 for 8 straight years. Wow. Dr. Colin Kelleher heads up the NIDS study. Dr. Kelleher said, "We probably have, if you count all the pre-NIDS and post-NIDS incidents, close to 100 different incidents. If you look at all of them, the one thing that jumps out is how unpredictable they are. In other words, nothing ever happened the same. The scientists would spend all night out in the darkness and witness dozens of UFOs and odd balls of light. They also encountered large unknown animals, including one that emerged from tunnels of light in the fields. Whatever it was proved elusive." Oh, the grammar's terrible. Anyway, the cameras were installed atop telephone poles and were attacked and dismantled. But whoever did it was invisible. Dr. Colin Kelleher said, "We checked the timestamps on the poles versus the pole." What? Oh, we checked the timestamp on this pole versus the pole we looked at when the camera had lost power and nothing was on the tape. There should have been something visible because the range of these things is pretty good. NIDS still owns the ranch, but it appears that the phenomenon has gone underground as if any way of being hunted. As yet, the majority of Skinwalker Ranch remains unsolved. Okay. Kelleher said, if anything, it's created more questions than when I came to this thing in the first place. The ranch remains off limits to outside visitors, and is from the world anyway. Okay, and from this world, the ranch remains off limits to outsiders. Full stop. Visitors from this world anyway are not welcome. Sometimes I do think, is it me or just the writing's a bit odd? It's those truncated sentences I find very, very irritating. But anyway, there you go. There is a book called Hunt Skinwalker by George Knapp and Colin Kelleher. There we go.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of these so-called journalists just don't know basic English.
Well, it's almost like they're just trying to write purely in headings all the time. It's all truncated and chopped up, and grammar's fairly poor, and you're trying to read it properly. It's hard to read it.
Yeah, I know.
It's like text speak.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, just this other link that you just posted up there, a bit more detail about the same kind of thing.
Yeah, this link that I've just put up there, it says just a bit of it. During the night, we didn't sleep well. 15 minutes of sleep here, 15 minutes of sleep there. During one point of the evening, we all hear an unusual animal cry. It was like a loud screeching sound, and then ended up with whoop whoop. We heard the sound 2 times. The sound of ee whoop whoop. I would love to consult with the zoologist and see if the zoologist is able to identify the animal sound. Listening to my recorder, it only picked up the sound of hard rain. The unusual animal sounds were heard at 3:24 a.m. At 4:12 a.m., Chantel was on watch. I was up and about again, and we both saw a lightning explosion that later turned into the shape of a large ball. The first words out of my mouth was, "What the fuck?" I grabbed Chantel's whistle and blew it, and Lisa came out. The lightning explosion was no longer invisible. It was an incredible sight. I can see how perhaps the Ute Indians may see this as a portal. I believe that I have witnessed ball lightning, a phenomenon that probably can be seen in states with severe weather patterns like Texas and Louisiana. It came out of nowhere, and there was no way I was able to photograph this spectacular display of natural electricity. That's just part of what he's written there about his night at the Skinwalker Ranch. So, but I've just messaged him to see whether he'll come on the show sometime and talk about his investigation.
That'd be great. That is a fascinating place from what I read about it.
Sounds like part of a 50s rock and roll song.
Dee bom dee boom dee dee boom dee dee. Dee bom dee boom. Yes, tonight, Josephine. Yes, tonight. Eee whoop whoop dee bom dee boom dee dee. I'm gonna have that in my head now.
Gotcha.
Don't want that.
Oh God.
Gotcha.
I don't know. So, but it'd be interesting getting back on and talk about it. But
Yes, it's possible. It'd be great,
it's done
actually.
quite a few on there. A look at Spring Hill Jack, Hawkesbury River Monster, Black Mould Spectres of Waterfield. He's done quite a few.
A fascinating
Haunted
story about an
Orient
encounter
Express.
with Spring Hill Jack from someone I used to work with, but I'll say that for another day.
But
I
She
don't
was,
know.
so like we say, when they
never
come
heard
on,
it
we
before.
get an
Right.
overall view of
Yeah.
what they've done, don't we?
Yeah,
So it'd be good to get him back and talk about
and talk about something
the
else.
specifics.
Yeah, specifics. So,
Did you catch what I was saying?
what's that, my dear?
To say about the Spring Hill Jack you just mentioned, I used to work with a woman who actually had a first-hand encounter with someone that appeared to be Spring Hill Jack. I said, yeah. And she never heard of it until I told her after she told me the story what on earth it was, and she was quite frightened. And she's a Irish woman in the 60s now, and this happened many years ago. And I'll save it for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was in the 60s it happened, and she's now in her late 60s. This was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a fascinating experience, but I'll save it for another day.
But as I say, I'm sorry it was a short interview today, but I
Well,
had to
fair enough.
phone
I mean,
up.
there's a combination. You couldn't hear her
Yeah.
very well,
No,
and she was
it's-
saying a hell of a lot.
Yeah. And unfortunately she hasn't got internet, and I was phoning Montana, so I hate to think how much that's just cost me. But we got a little bit of a gist of it all, didn't we?
I mean, in a lot of cases, especially in the early days, a lot of these Native American tribes would have looked at these as being ancestors and spirit guides,
Oh yeah.
Yes, definitely.
rather than, oh look, there's a strange thing coming from the sky. What is it? They would have looked at it from a spiritual point of view, which leads to the question that you were trying to ask her there about are ufologists actually missing a link here by not looking into the spiritual side of it, because a lot of the older ones with the tribes and stuff, they would have looked at it that way. They wouldn't have looked at it as being anything other than that, they wouldn't have thought, oh look, it's a UFO.
Well, exactly. They wouldn't have the idea of it being any kind of technology. It would have been supernatural, be angelic or demonic or whatever terminology you prefer, but certainly not the idea of internet. I would say I didn't. So, kind of again brush that off a little bit, as if I don't know if she necessarily understood what you meant, but
yeah. So if it comes down and it's helpful, then it's your spirit guides and your ancestors. If it comes down and tries to kick your ass, then it's an evil entity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've often discussed this. I think very much that it's somewhere between the two, isn't it? It's not one or the other. And there's part of the reason why I found this Walker Ranch place so fascinating, because it doesn't fall into the category of being one or the other.
No.
Strange going on.
I've never quite understood the good and bad. I mean, anybody that knows anything about human beings know we've all got a good and a bad side.
Oh, yeah.
It just depends on what side you want to show. So why would anything else be totally bad or totally good? You know?
Yes, I mean that's well, each one doesn't make sense without the other anyway.
No,
very true. Very true.
But
I'd like to have heard a bit more detail about some of the stories that we gather, rather than being just told to refer back to a bloody book all the time.
Yeah.
The idea is if you say a little bit about what's in your book, it entices us to go and buy it. If you just keep saying, well, read my book, you think, well, no, sold you. You can't bother to tell me anything about it, why should I bother reading it?
Yeah, having said that, the lady is in her 60s now.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of the things we were asking, maybe she was having a few problems actually remembering.
Yeah, I would just tell us a story from your book, dear. You know? So get the book out and open it at random and read a bit. That helps. That starts off more discussion about what was being read, but she wasn't really telling us enough to have a proper discussion about, which is a shame, because it's definitely an interesting topic. It's the idea that they've been experiencing. I mean, so often you hear Native American mythology that involves sky beings, and you have to start asking those kind of questions of yourself. Are they just talking about metaphorical sky beings, or are we talking about something that really has come out the sky? Has physically landed in front of them. Yeah, so it's interesting what she said about most of them being Catholic. So they're all, obviously speaking, obviously people who are generationally converted and are still holding on to a belief, if you want to call it a belief system, that would be very contrary to the Catholic faith, the whole idea of anything other than angels coming down, but they were rather specifically saying sky beings, as in extraterrestrials, not being angels from heaven, which obviously for the Catholic faith, anything that's not basically angel and God is evil. So it's interesting that you're getting a kind of a blurring of beliefs there. You know, you're not abandoning one belief system completely for the favour of another one. You're taking elements of different belief systems and still declaring yourself to be, for example, Catholic, although you're not believing in something that's strictly speaking Catholic.
Yeah,
it's like
sounds very much a conglomerate of different faiths.
It's like you wouldn't have conventional Catholics and they also believe in reincarnation, because they're fundamentally incompatible with each other. Catholicism is very clear, there's only one life and that's it. So you wouldn't have, or even a conventional Christian of any kind having a belief in reincarnation, because the two don't match up, unless you talk about sort of spiritual Christianity, which is somewhat different. So it's interesting that they haven't completely abandoned their own belief systems.
Yeah.
Be it a belief system, be it the belief that these things are from outer space, whether they're real or otherwise, and they're belief systems that they are from there. Because you can't prove they are, therefore if you believe they are, it's a belief system. Yeah, it's interesting that both are maintained.
It's also interesting that she stated that the Mayas actually believe that they're not extraterrestrial, they're actually related.
Yeah.
They're actually descendants from the sky people.
Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of confused at one point because I wasn't sure if she was saying that they observe us and nothing more, or that they are our actual ancestors, i.e. they cause our existence. I wasn't quite sure which one she was saying then, because on the one hand, you're just observing, then we're already here, they've come to observe us, or you are actually influencing, i.e. places in the first place.
Well, there was a contradiction, because when it came to the Maya, she was saying that they actually came down and they built the cities, and the Mayas are a descendant.
And then by virtue of that, you're definitely talking about direct interference.
Yeah.
Not merely observing. So I don't know, I wasn't too sure either.
Unless she means the ones that are turning up now. I suppose, but then,
okay, that could be the way she means it.
Yeah.
but
Just what we get on with.
unfortunately,
And the idea that somehow perhaps they are trying to learn from us. Well, that's quite a unique perspective, I have to say. It's usually they want to learn from us by chopping things up on genus Rablat. Rablats? What's a Rablat?
I don't know. A Rablat.
Yeah, I'm a Rablat. What are you?
It's a furry laboratory.
Right, well, let me tell you, before we carry on, let me tell you what's coming up next week. Scotty Roberts and Dr. John Ward will be joining us, hopefully, talking about ancient civilizations, Egypt, and their up-and-coming paradigm symposium. Oh, it goes way further than that. As we get into symbolism, occultism, possibly Aleister Crowley, and much more. Scott Alan Roberts is a man of diverse interests and a fairly eclectic background. He is founder and publisher of Intrepid magazine, a monthly journal focusing on politics, science, culture, conspiracy theories and unexplained phenomena. Dr. John Ward is an archaeologist and an anthropologist who resides in Luxor, Egypt. So let's hope Skype works well. Over the years, Dr. Ward has conducted numerous investigations of ancient Egyptian architecture and symbolism, while also carrying out research into the many mysteries surrounding medieval templarism. One there for you, Andy. What do you reckon?
Yes, it's interesting. Yes. I've just come across his book on the Nephilim, Rise and Fall of the Nephilim.
Yes.
He doesn't mean the goth band from the 1980s and the actual Nephilim, but
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
I find it interesting that all these different civilizations at different times in different places around the world are all telling similar stories.
Mm.
They've all had sky people, light angels, whatever they want them, but they're all coming from the same place.
It absolutely points very much in the direction that this stuff, there is something to it. I mean, for me it's interesting because it works at two different levels. The fact that it's almost a universal thing, this idea of beings coming from the skies, you get it in Native American, North and South, you get it in Polynesian cultures, and you get it in sort of Australasian, Aboriginal belief systems and stories, legends, that is this something physical that they're actually talking about, or is it some kind of deep psyche, external psyche, collective unconscious concept that's actually happening here? And of course, being a Jungian, I would say that it's probably the latter, but you have to wonder if there isn't something very real to the notion of ancient aliens visiting Earth and just observing and giving us a few tips on a few things, in sort of 10,000, 20,000 years of history. That's a long period of time on a human scale, or any living creatures scale. Even if you're an alien lived for 500 years, 10,000 years is still a fair amount of time. So the possibility that over the last 10, 15, 20,000 years something has come down to visit us is an interesting possibility that, it warrants a lot of exploration when you look at and discover similar stories being told around the world of these kinds of creatures visiting Earth. By the same token, certainly stories of fairy tales and mythology that are very similar, that you can all say that aren't necessarily of real creatures, but are very similar in their stories, and they have cultures who don't know each other, then that points to the idea of a collective unconscious notion of these sort of beings existing, and they're not actually physically real creatures, but they're like something from our collective deep psyche. So, I mean, maybe they're both. I don't know. I just find it fascinating, this constant rediscovery, if you like, of connection between different cultures who never knew or met each other. But is it all just coincidence? Is it all just because our brains all work roughly the same way, whatever culture we're from, and that's what creates this imagery and belief systems within us because of the way our brains work? Or are they experiencing something that is very real, physical, out there creatures, aliens from other planet, or whatever, other realities, other dimensions? Or is it that third place that, as I said before, that it isn't completely fantasy, it's not completely real, it's somewhere in the middle between the two? I just find the whole thing absolutely fascinating. I was hoping to hear a bit more about how, Ardy's research had shown if there was a possible direction that these things are, that it's one or the other, or just some of the stories that I could perhaps relate to other stories I've heard and read up from other cultures, but there wasn't anything. It didn't really say very much that really helped us understand what kind of stories people were telling, other than the going to their book.
I mean, these beings, whatever they happen to be, do seem to move us forward every so often.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be part of the idea.
But going back to your conscious thing, I had a quick thought while you were doing your Jungian bit there. Well, because the Earth and our brains resonate at the same frequency, could it be a bit like Avatar? We're actually connecting via the Earth. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. The only thing I would say is that first bit about the Earth and our brains vibrate, I don't get that.
No, they vibrate at the same frequency. That has been proved.
Can you show me a link to that information?
I did actually put it on the show.
The human brain vibrates at a different rate depending on what we're doing, and depends on what activities are actually happening in the brain.
Now, some guy worked it out, and it was worked out twice by different people, that the resonance of our brain and the Earth are exactly the same.
I'm interested to see about more of that, Steve, because it doesn't.
I think it was 12 something. Can't remember exactly what the figures were now. It was quite a while. Do you remember that I mentioned it?
I don't actually. Sorry.
But,
well done, Sue. Helpful support there.
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Going on that theory, it's quite possible that knowledge is being transferred around the globe via that way.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from that respect.
Especially in the early days, not so much now. But in the early days when we were supposedly primitive and had different ways of looking at things.
I certainly agree that there is information that somehow we don't know how it happens, that information does travel between different parts of societies where ideas are very, very similar start to crop up, and they are exactly the same concepts and notions. I mean, I can give you a little example of that, which I found absolutely fascinating, because I kind of came into the story myself as well a little bit. Give me a couple of minutes to tell you the story, so I find this quite fascinating. One of the reasons why Carl Jung came to this notion of a collective unconscious was an experience he had whilst working at the Berkshire Institute for the insane, basically. He was listening to the story being told to him, or the observations being told to him, by an inmate, a patient at the hospital, who was outside and was saying that the sun had a giant penis hanging from it.
I beg your pardon?
Exactly, yes, that's what he said. And the penis itself was producing a wind that if you turned one direction, the wind would blow one direction, and if you turn the opposite direction, the wind would go the opposite direction at the same time. Okay? Now, that was a rather strange thing to say, but this is what this guy was saying, that it was an energy force that was produced by the sun in the form of this giant penis that gave out this energy. Now, a few years later, they came across some very old documents of the religion called Mithras, which is around in the Roman times, that a lot of Roman soldiers actually worshipped Mithras and followed their sort of rituals and traditions, etc. And it was seen at one point as a rival to Christianity. It was very popular with the Roman legions and soldiers. And part of the ritual involved in Mithras worship involved this symbolic penis coming from the sun that produced energy and used to produce a wind that would go in the direction you were looking in. And you thought, hang on a minute, could this guy have perhaps read this stuff? It had not been translated before. It was the first time this material had been translated into German, and this guy who was insane, who told Jung of this several years before, only spoke German. He couldn't possibly, he was just a villager, who'd gone into the asylum. He couldn't possibly have read the Mithran rituals. There's no way, it was 2,000 years ago. So that began Jung's belief that there was something about our collective unconscious connecting together. But anyway, here's a funny little story. I was actually listening to this in an audio book in London a few weeks ago. I was up on a book buying trip that I often do. And I went into a bookshop in Waterloo area, second-hand bookshop, and picked up a book which is on Gnostic mysticism by G.R. Mead. And I happened to open the book, literally no more than 10-15 minutes after hearing that section of the audiobook I was listening to. Opened the book up at random, and guess what I found? Right in front of me was the exact ritual I've just been listening to on my audiobook, not 10 minutes before.
Synchronicity.
Exactly. And that, I thought, bloody hell, I've been pulled into the Jungian's discovery of the effective unconscious and synchronicity, and there it is happening for me. Exactly in front of me. I was like, bloody hell, that was really quite amazing. So, yes, it's one of those things that there is definitely this kind of deep psychic connection. And I have just found exactly what Stephen was talking about. Human resonance. The geometric realm reveals the human brain state. Yes, it's very similar resonance to us being in a light state of relaxation, 7.5 hertz. So I'll take it back, Steve. You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
Go on, Steve.
Yeah, the link I put up there is something is similar, but it's not the one I actually read at the time.
Let's have a look. And if it's the one I'm looking at the moment, I should be like, oh my idiot. Is it? Come through. Come on, show me the link. No, different link. It would be funny if it was the same bloody one I was looking at. Well, I'll show you the one I was just looking at.
Yeah, that's has a similar lead to it, but it wasn't the one I actually found at the time.
Yeah, around 7 hertz is light, is the alpha state, is light relaxation, and it's the state that we therapists often try to induce into our clients in order to help them feel more relaxed and able to talk about what they're experiencing, what they're feeling without getting too worked up by it. The alpha state. It's also a state you have in very light levels of sleep. There's the link to my one, which is actually quite short, so it's the proper link. And it was all that. But the human resonance, yes, there is definitely a reality to it. I mean, you could certainly say that if you regard the human resonance as being a frequency of vibration, our brains are vibrating when we relax at the same frequency, therefore it can act as a carry-away to our thought processes. Yeah, thought possible. The only thing I would say is that I don't think you could say that any one culture originated these mythological stories and ideas and symbols. They seem to just reoccur at random. You know, it's not like the same one is found everywhere. It's like one of the main ones that Jung then researched in more detail was the Cinderella myth, and found 5 different versions of it around the world. Not all identical, but very, very similar. And you know, some cultures did have that one, and other cultures didn't have it, and there'd be a third culture would have a different one. But they'd crop up. You know, these different versions of different stories would crop up. There was no one universal story that every culture had. But it was just the fact that these cultures had such similar mythologies. When the cultures themselves were quite different, you know, you might think of 2 very similar cultures, like I see 2 ancient seafaring cultures who did a lot of fishing. Both had legends of great fishes in the sea that rescued people. You understand that? But if one culture lives high on the mountaintop and never sees the sea, another culture lives down by the sea but thousands of miles apart, yet have the same symbolism in their belief systems, but there's nothing that would connect them, as in no shared kind of experiences. And you think, oh, that is really interesting. And I hope I've lost everybody now. I noticed the viewer count's gone down by a couple. Must be
I don't know. So
there we go.
But anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to sort out the
who says we can't
events.
talk?
Yeah, who says we can't talk?
Let's do How about that?
What I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the events, get them out of the way. So we'll see you in a minute. Fed up of wading through the activities and events that other advertisers include? Find just what you're looking for at paranormaleventsforyou.com. Your one-stop paranormal directory. Right, okay, forthcoming events. On the 17th of April, there's a ghost hunt at the Jamaica Inn in Cornwall. You can find out more at jamaicainn.co.uk. On the 18th and 19th, the Bohemian Bazaar is back at the Grand Pavilion in Matlock Bath, with its usual alternative stalls such as holistic therapies, plus some unusual and unique items. On the 19th of April, there's a ghost hunt at the Stoke Hotel in Wigan. On the 25th, there's a ghost walk up Clitheroe Castle and Pendle Hill. Derek Akora's still doing his psychic ether tours around the country, and Tony Stockwell is continuing his tour throughout the UK. For more details on this and other events, visit paranormaleventsforyou.com. Paranormaleventsforyou.com also offers banner advertising for only £10 per year. See our website for more details. Paranormaleventsforyou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory. Yeah, and that's the events for this coming weeks. Now, I just wanted to let you know Firstly, I apologise for the shortness of the interview tonight. Unfortunately, the telephone service wasn't very good, phone in Montana. And also, as we rightly say, even though we have these people on, to talk about what they do and what have you, it's nice to hear what they do instead of really referring to read the book or watch the film or whatever. That's, if they agree to come on, then obviously please tell us something. Don't you agree, Andy?
Yeah, so it's little pointless, really.
Yeah. So, and just to give you a heads up, I'm just going to let you know that on the 26th of April, yours truly, Steve and myself, will not be with you. But we're going to leave you in the capable hands of Andy Mercer while we go off to Scotland to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. Okay? Yeah. And the subject on the night is not keeping the paranormal friendly, it's keeping the occult friendly. Andy's guest will be Richard Ward, owner of Man, Myth and Magic bookstore, a venture born from years of occasional second-hand book list in association with his friends and colleague, the writer Andrew Collins. Whilst Andrew has been busy writing, he decided to take up part-time venture to a full-time venture reality in 2005. Andy and Richard have a long history of being involved in psychic questing. You'll find out more about what that's all about. Apparently it's the search for hidden artifacts by psychic means. Andy and Richard will talk about questing history and origins and its darker side, known as black questing, and its most famous example, the Black Alchemist. I'm going to regret missing that, I must admit. Never mind. So if you want to find out more about Man, Myth and Magic, you can go to manmythandmagic.com if you're interested in all books paranormal to witchcraft and magic. He also covers paganism, alternative religions, mysticism, earth mysteries, folklore, the supernatural, archaeology and ancient histories. So you can find out more from there. Don't forget, we have our magazine, the KTPF magazine. The KTPF magazine is now out. The April edition, the first issue, is out now, and you can either read it online or download your copy via our website. Just hit online magazine, which you will find on our menu bar. We are also looking for contributions from people within these subjects, i.e. showcasing their books, a group, highlighting haunted venues, anything like that, maybe an extract of the book. So if you're interested in contributing to the KTPF magazine, then send your articles to publisher@ktpf.co.uk. And if you like what you're listening to, then please don't forget to follow us via Facebook or Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find all our past shows. So, and now, without any further ado, she says, 2 seconds while I key it up. Andy's Mysteries and Conspiracy Files.
Indeed. Just very, very briefly, going back to the show that will be the walking disaster when I take over on my own. It's all sorts of stuff we can talk about. It doesn't have to be just the Black Alchemist. In fact, Richard and I can waffle on about general occult stuff for decades anyway. So we'll do our best to maintain some degree of integrity in the show, but don't look for much, guys. Sometimes we'll do our best. Anyway, here's my first little report from the land of weirdness I thought was interesting. It's all about strange noises from space.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Alien life could be the cause of mysterious radio bursts from space. There's a little video that might just start by itself at the top of the screen, which is very irritating, but it does. You can't stop it. Is there alien life out there? The sheer size and complexity of the universe would suggest that there's only one realistic answer to that question. Despite its size, proving alien life exists has been spectacularly difficult. In the last 10 years, the biggest clue has been a mysterious recurring radio burst that has puzzled astronomers, kept UFO watchers permanently glued to their radio equipment, and the rest of us hoping it doesn't all turn into Independence Day. No! A new study could finally shed light on this mysterious signal. pointing that there's just two possible outcomes: a new cosmic phenomena, or, as we've all been hoping, contact from alien life. The study, carried out by scientists at the Institute for Data Analysis somewhere in Germany, analysed 11 signal bursts that started in 2007 that were last detected in 2011. They were focused on the particular was the time dispersion between the signal's low and high frequencies, discovering that every instance the difference was a multitude of 187.5. Speaking to the Huffington Post science team, the co-author of the paper, Michael Hipke, almost Michael Hippie, said that it's likely not produced by something like a supernova explosion. All frequencies leave the nova at the same time, and that the DM dispersion measure, is created by dust crossing. Is created by dust crossing. As the moment of dust varies, the DM would also seem random. So in other words, if it was an explosion from a supernova, it should all be at the same steady flow out, and this is at more of a random, suggesting it's not a supernova. The other evidence that supports the theory is that the signal is artificial. When it was first detected in real time, astronomers immediately theorized that it could be the remnants of a supernova explosion. However, these explosions throw out huge amounts of light and other wavelengths. No other wavelengths were detected. Well, it's easy to get excited at this, but the fact is it's all based on just 11 pieces of data. The signals are incredibly faint and certainly not sending anything that could be understood as a message. There's still a real possibility that it's just background noise. Oh, there you go. The director of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, Seth Shostak, sums it up in an email to whoever Gosmindo is. Anyway, yes, if it is a signal, well, it's certainly not a message, except maybe they say, we are here. There's not real bandwidth to it, which means that the first radio bursts aren't encoded in many bits. There are also other possibilities. I think that they automatically attributed something in the sky that we don't at first understand is the work to attribute something we don't understand at first to the work of aliens is premature. But there we go. So that's quite interesting. Noises from space.
A little bit of synchronicity there as well.
Say again?
A little bit of synchronicity there as well. You mentioned Independence Day.
Yeah.
Out of the blue, I happened to notice that it was on last night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? That's fine. That's true, yeah. I saw the end credits and that was it. I missed it otherwise.
I was going through looking for something else and I noticed it was on.
Yeah, it was a good film. I quite enjoyed it. I remember I actually saw it not live, but first week at the cinema at midnight. It was absolutely crowded beyond belief.
Okay, what's your
There
next?
was always talk of a sequel, which never ever happened, did it? Which is a shame.
No.
Okay, this one, the next story is actually thanks to Mr. Steve. He sent this one over to me, which I thought was very interesting. Very brief bit of video footage, and I thought it was quite interesting. Let's get this opening up. Dark object streaks across Nebraska highway. The dark object streaks across Nebraska highway. One of the pitfalls of pursuing anomalies is trusting your gut. 99% of the time, you know a video, a photo, or eyewitness account is straightforward words. The other 10% are just sing, as in definitely believable. Something weird is happening. Fate conspires to give you a glimpse behind the curtain, apprehending one of the universe's greater mysteries. Kelly Schreiber's footage may well be one of those gems. And if you scroll a little bit, it is only a very short 10-second clip, and you can click on it and watch. And it's quite fascinating.
I don't know, it could be a jet, surely.
I don't know.
Possible drone, I suppose.
Well, it's the smoking behind it, and it does seem to move incredibly fast. If you can't see this, obviously, guys, in the YouTube replay, the links are there, but I'll briefly describe what you can see. It's someone driving along a motorway it's either twilight or quite dark because it's very heavy thunderstorm going on. I think possibly just because of the thunderstorm. You see lightning in the background, and then to the right of the driver, there is a dark cylinder-like object that goes past at some speed, leaving a bit of a trail of black smoke behind it.
As our American cousins would say, it looks like he's got his butt on fire.
Yeah. Well, it's funny saying to Steve earlier on today when we were talking about this briefly, it reminds a bit of the opening of the Steven Spielberg's version of War of the Worlds. We had the thunderstorm and the lightning and the wind going towards the storm rather than away from it, which was odd. And then later on in the film, you see the woman slows down an image of this lightning bolt hitting the ground, and you see there's an object in the lightning going into the earth.
Yeah.
So that was a bit disconcerting, to say the least. Anyway, just read a bit more. Here's the footage uploaded late Wednesday night for your approval. Ufologist extraordinaire Chris, never heard of him, shared it. The moment shall happen 3 seconds into the video. Taking a skeptical tack on, note the small s, it could be a missile, a low-flying meteor zipping across Nebraska, or a judicious case of Adobe After Effects. Heck, here's Curry's take. This is the person who got it. I was guessing a meteor or Superman. Either way, it's something I would never have thought twice about if I'd actually seen it if I hadn't got it on video. Skepticism, not cynicism.
And Andy's reason for saying Chris, I've never heard of him, is because he didn't want to say his name was Rutkowski.
There you go. Thank you. Someone did it for me.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I'm not.
It's just above the video.
Oh, right, okay.
It's saying that yesterday was April Fool's Day, and this is posted on the 2nd, so I was saying the video footage was April Fool's Day or another day. I don't know, I think it's
interesting.
It won't study if you can. I mean, I'm not sure what else you could do with it, but it does, to me, it looks like something's coming out the clouds. Now, again, whether it could be an aircraft trying to escape the lightning, or may have been hit by lightning and flying erratically because of it, I don't know. It probably isn't Superman, I expect, but you never know. Anyway, next story.
It's the Flash.
Oh my God, no.
If you look at it again,
yes,
just as it appears, it seems to you see a black puff of smoke, and then it takes off like a freaking rocket.
Well, maybe it is a rocket.
So I'm wondering whether it was at that point that it actually ignited and took off.
Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to try and get it enlarged and see if you can see it coming from the distance, or it just appears mid-distance, because that's usually a sign that something's been added on, because it doesn't actually go from the full distance, if you like. It only appears mid-distance.
No, it does seem to appear in the middle of it somewhere.
Well, here's my next one, chaps. This is the Kazakhstan.
Smoke machine.
Kazakhstan.
Smoke ring? Question mark. Portal to hell? Question mark. Mysterious black ring hovers over Kazakh village. Scrolling down a little bit. A strange black circle spotted in the sky above the village in northern Kazakhstan. Baffled residents captured the mysterious spectacle on video as it hovered in the air for 15 minutes before disappearing. Villagers living in shorthandy, so don't say a word, from some 70 kilometers from Kazakh's capital, Astana, witnessed the spooky event on Friday afternoon. It was a black cloud. We saw it around 4 p.m. on April the 3rd. It dissipated like smoke, but it was completely odorless. Oleg Meshkinov, a village resident, told today's KZ, which is obviously the newspaper. Andrei Solokanov, Andrew, Russian person, associate physics professor of the Northern Kazakhstan State University, estimated the ring was about 100 meters in diameter and floated at an altitude of between 200 meters and a kilometer. As its mysterious origins, Solovnik suggested the giant hoop was most likely a large smoke ring from the result of combustion, a theory that confirms what most experts have said about similar circles seen in the past. Black rings have been sighted all over the world. Last April, a video of one such event recorded in Leamington Spa, no less. Oh yeah, there's the video of the two are both here. They left interested users puzzled after making rounds on the social media. Dozens of other videos featuring rings of nearly identical to the ones in Kazakhstan can be found on the internet. There you go.
And the gentleman's name is Andrei Solodovnik.
That's it. I've not word of English bloody words.
Andrei Solodovnik.
That's the guy.
Solodovnik.
It's interesting because I'm just watching briefly the Leamington Spa video and the Kazakhstanian video, almost sort of one above the other, and it does look quite similar. I mean, the exact shape isn't the same, but the way it just sort of hangs in the sky, if you like, is quite similar. It's rather odd. I mean, the English one appears to be in an otherwise rather cloudy sky, so it's below cloud level, obviously, but the one in Kazakhstan is a clear blue sky, so it's quite interesting, actually. as to what on earth that could be. Anyway, there we go.
Oh,
What do you think, guys?
yeah, not too
Interesting.
It's one of some perhaps UFOs are actually diesel powered after all, not in with physics.
UFO backfires.
The one
Yeah.
underneath about at Burning Man 2008, giant fireball and smoke ring at Burning Man 2008.
That wasn't actually a Burning Man, was it? Was it another place?
No, it was a. I think it's a. If you click on it, it's quite similar, but it's some sort of like. I
Interesting,
think
it's not giving me the same link. It's giving me different links underneath mine. There's one there, Black Room, the Sky over England, explained. Oh, hold on, that'd be worth looking at for a second. Oh, yes. No, that's
it
interesting.
says mysterious or not, some equipment is known to produce rings, smoke ring generator, blah blah blah.
Look, video is showing it being produced. That is very similar. Actually, yeah, that is very similar.
So,
You see the one I'm talking about, the one that's got the English footage one side, and there's someone showing how they made it, this kind of ring of fire.
no, I've only got your link.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's just on the
Yeah,
but
it's the first
interestingly,
one in between there. If you play that, they produce a smoke ring.
the interesting thing is, it appears to be dissipating far more rapidly.
And then that
It's only
goes
lasted
up.
a minute or two, whereas the Russian one repeatedly lasted more than 40 minutes.
Oh,
Well, here's
yeah.
put this on our page. This is the link to the video I'm now watching. It produces a similar ring, but it only lasts probably no more than, well, the whole clip's only 30 seconds long. And by the end of that 30-second clip, which includes the guy lighting the thing in the first place, and by the end of the 36-second clip, it's almost completely vanished anyway. So I can see why you might think that, but it doesn't last long enough.
Yeah.
If anyone's watching the video clip, I'll stop for a minute because it's interesting the way it forms. But both the English clip and certainly the Russian, Ukraine, Kazakhstani clip, a bit like
Where are you
areas.
actually putting this?
Onto our forum. If you look on the chat room, I've just put the link to the YouTube video that I'm talking about.
Look at the Kazakhstan
But the one I'm looking
So
at,
look at the Kazakhstan one.
yeah,
Underneath that, you got the one in England. That's school
Yeah.
ball, yeah. And underneath that, you got the fireball one.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the one
the
I'm
link
looking
to
at, the
that.
fireball
Yeah,
one.
that's the one we're talking
But
about.
the black fireball ring doesn't last more than about 20 seconds, whereas they're saying the thing in Kazakhstan was seen for more than 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which
Two.
like it's been the same feature, same
Yeah.
thing, because of the massive difference in length of time it lasted. The other thing I felt was amazing with this story was the name of the bleeding village, Shorthandy.
Short Andy.
Well, that's a bizarre name for a village in Kazakhstan. Shorthandy.
Short
Was
Andy.
it Shorthandy? Yeah.
He's not that short.
No,
Oh,
he's just slightly
it's
taller
short,
than me.
Anyway, this is my next one. There we go.
Okay.
Didn't work. Hold on, didn't work. Yes. Oh my god, the whole chat room's disappeared.
What?
No, that's still left.
Chat room's in. Oh my god, right there. Oh no, no! What happened here?
What have you done?
He's just clocked himself out.
Yeah,
Just-
sausage.
Oh wait, on 2 seconds. Just whistle amongst yourselves for a second.
Ah,
Yes.
can't whistle.
Just sigh. Oh, but the whole page has vanished. Very interesting though that these things again are being seen around the world under different circumstances. That's what I find fascinating as well. That these rings of smoke are appearing, but are they smoke or are they? Anyway, I've stopped waffling now. I'm back on screen.
Well,
There we go.
but if,
My next one.
if they're staying up longer, you would think they would have more grease than that in it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm thinking. If it's a ring of smoke, then how the hell does it last as long as that? Anyway, several witnesses video live UFOs over Phoenix and Arizona yet again. Good old Phoenix. Most famous, of course, for a few years back, the Phoenix lights. The lights of that were seen over the city by hundreds of witnesses. I think in the 90s, I think it happened.
Yeah,
but this is
there's a
the
picture
video
of that.
footage that is actually directly linked to the report is incredibly short, about 4 seconds, and you really can't see anything in it. But if you scroll down, you'll see the image lit up much brighter, which shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights in very close proximity to each other, and a 6th and possibly a 7th somewhere apart from it. But I'll read the little feature anyway. Orange balls of light was seen by several people over Phoenix, Arizona on Easter Sunday last week. A couple of those witnesses caught objects on video. Arizona's 12 News interviewed Peter Perez, who said he and his family saw the lights just before settling down for Easter dinner. Perez says his stepfather saw them first and called the rest of the family over to take a look. The story in azcentral.com said the sighting took place on Saturday. However, Perez says it was Easter, and later in the story they mentioned the sighting on the 5th of April, which was Easter. The Saturday thing may have been a mistype, or was it seen more than once? Either way, Perez says it was about 8:15 p.m. when his stepfather pointed out the lights. Perez saw a fleet of orbs over the horizon. He estimates there were about 18 to 20 amber-coloured orbs. He told 12 News, "We were in awe." Now, there's certainly not 15 or 20 in this photograph. At most there's 6, 7. Absolutely most is only 7, but anyway. And Perez said the area they came from was obstructed from his view. According to Perez, the lights hovered in a group stationary for a minute before moving off to the west and disappearing from view. After losing sight of the objects, Perez stayed outside for a few minutes. He then saw a second group of lights moving similar to the first. Perez says the second group was smaller, about 10 lights, he estimated.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Andy, but if you go further down to the bottom, it says Chinese lantern.
Oh, where?
Right at the bottom.
Right at the bottom.
Oh, it says not Chinese lantern people.
No, it says UFO over Arizona. Nope, Chinese lantern.
No, it says not Chinese lantern.
No, it says nope.
Nope. Not.
What?
Nope.
Chinese lanterns do not fly at speeds outpacing helicopters capable of 120 miles an hour. Plus, Easter Sunday, the wind was not present at all, not even enough wind to move 50-foot flags. Not Chinese lanterns, people.
Oh.
Where are you reading?
I was reading what the video said.
It says right at the bottom.
Well, if you look at what it says underneath the video,
Yeah, I just saw that.
it says different.
So the debate continues.
Yeah, I mean that. When you get closer to that looks like a Chinese lantern, doesn't it? Down at Strange, it came from the slow pace at least one quarter way. If they were often camber in colour, they were used in most on the holidays like Easter. However, another alleged witness who responded to Tim the Bell's video writes, Chinese lanterns do not fly at speeds outpacing helicopters capable of speeds of 120 miles per hour. Plus, Easter Sunday, the wind was not present at all, not even enough wind to move a 50-inch flag. Not Chinese lanterns, people.
Well,
the debate continues. Take a look at the video and let us know what you think.
I can contradict the lady there to start with.
What you saw. Sorry?
I can contradict the lady there to start with. Just because there isn't enough wind down on Earth to wave a flag doesn't mean there isn't one up there.
Yeah.
I mean, the wind speed up there is considerably different to what it is down here.
Absolutely.
On land. So her statement's a bit silly there.
Well, their movement in the second video is more more the lines of Chinese lanterns.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting because it's good old Phoenix, Arizona yet again. I mean, it did have its very famous UFO experience a few years ago. I'm sure you guys have heard of the Phoenix Lights before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really quite a famous case.
I mean, having said that,
was a mystery.
I haven't seen anything in the actual story there that says they were chased by helicopters. So
yes, I can only assume that other witness either didn't come forward at the time or it was just full of crap. Or the other possibility. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah, I think possibly the other one's just trying to make a point that this doesn't actually relate to the story in question.
Okay. What was you going to say, Andy?
I've one more, which is my favourite video of the week. As always, I found a nice video to round things.
Video time.
Is it silly video time?
Absolutely.
Yay!
Yeah. Possibly, it might be that the I don't know if you guys, anyone listening, has seen Despicable Me.
No.
If you remember at the beginning of the film, the one of the pyramids has been stolen, hasn't it? And although it's never officially identified as to what happened to it, there is a suggestion, of course, that the other villain has got it in his back garden with painted with a skull on it. Or it could be this is the missing pyramid from Despicable Me. Watch the clip and you'll see it. And it zooms in slowly to this strange object just hanging in the sky over Colombia, March 2010. That could be an upside down pyramid.
There seems to be two of them.
Yes, it's very strange, isn't it?
There seems to be another one there at the same time.
Yes, little baby pyramid, which is in the big upside down pyramid.
Little me.
Yeah,
Me.
absolutely.
Mini me.
Yes, I've got that silly one. Might be fake, someone puts a question marks afterwards. There's a good chance. This is the worst. If this is then fake, yes, there's some rather strong language being applied later on.
It is in fact a balloon, says somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Keys are upside down, somebody else says. Yes, but yes, I think that's probably what really happened to the missing pyramid. It was actually turned into a UFO flying over Colombia. And what's Colombia famous for? Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right, it's me over numbers.
Okay. And that's the conspiracy files.
Yeah, it's conspiracy of us aliens and the type. And I couldn't find a silly object found on Mars this time, which is a shame. I had one virtually every week I've been on, but this one I couldn't find one, which is a real shame. Considering I had 2 weeks as well, because I had no report last week, so it was too rough. But yeah, so there we go.
Okay. Well, hopefully next week we'll have a longer conversation with our guest. And not only that, you two will be heard, so that'll be good. So, wouldn't it, really?
You mean I'd be heard?
Yeah.
Well, she couldn't hear you because she
on the
telephone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, and she would never have heard you, Andy.
No.
So, but thank you for your questions anyway, the pair of you, and everybody else that was in the chat room asking questions. I think basically that's it, and it really for tonight's show.
Yes.
Yeah, it's strange. It's a short one, isn't it? We used to be like 3 or 4 hours these days.
I know, this is it, unfortunately. But obviously...
Let's talk about a couple of little things I was mention. But while I was off ill, I remember watching a whole plethora of films, and I discovered that I rather like what we call the found footage type, shaky cam stuff. But I watched a couple which I watched about 6 in total, 2 of which I was impressed with for positive reasons, and 2 of which I was impressed with for very negative reasons. 2 of the best I watched, and I think anyone who's interested in this kind of stuff should really try and catch up with. The first one was called Final Broadcast. It's actually a found footage of an investigation into a thing called the Jersey Devil. The interesting thing about the film was when it was released, it was criticised as it came very soon after the Blair Witch Project, and people were saying that they basically made a film off the back of the success of Blair Witch in order to cash in on it. And so it was pointed out the film was actually made before Blair Witch was made, so it wasn't copying one or the other. But basically it's an investigation. It's more of a documentary style investigation into this thing called the Jersey Devil, and obviously I won't spoil anything about saying what happens in it, but it's got a hell of a twist at the end which you really didn't expect, because one of the problems with most of these found footage type films is you already know they're all dead because the footage has been found, so something's happened to them. But the ending of this one, it comes as quite a surprise, and I do recommend it. It's worth looking out for. The Final Broadcast, it's called, an investigation of the Jersey Devil. Another good positive one which I really enjoyed watching was the Atticus Institute. Again, very well worth watching. It's a kind of a mock documentary, mixing very, very convincing video footage from the early 80s with interviews of the staff in the present day. It's actually about demonic possession, and it is actually a very good take on the idea. And one of the things that was actually said in the film which really caught my ear was from someone who was involved in the military doing investigations of cyber warfare, and he said that this is the only case that we have ever been involved in investigating. And although of course it's a film, it's fictional, he made the point that every other report that's been out there, if we'd have heard about it in the military, we would have been investigating it. And the fact that we've never bothered with any other report should tell you a lot about the validity of them. And they've been wondering, have things like the original true Exorcist story, the guy involved in that, have the American military ever shown any interest in those stories? There's absolutely no report anywhere of any government involvement. Now, of course, you can go down the dark conspiracy route saying, well, of course they have, they read the files and don't tell us. But I don't know, I thought that was an interesting point, that if someone came along who appeared to have incredible power, which this person appears to have in the Atticus Institute film, then would the military have investigated it? They might find it interesting. But yeah, the Atticus Institute, well worth looking at. Good film, very enjoyable. And two that were not so good. A film called The Blair Witch Haunting, which is essentially kind of, there's more than one film with this title, not Blair Witch, The Bell Witch Haunting, sorry. There's a modern film that is a found footage shaky cam job, and there's like a historic version. Historic version I've not seen, couldn't comment on, but this modern version I watched was awful. Again, it's a kind of attempting to copy Paranormal Activity, and it was just very badly put together. It's incoherent in some parts. You have quite dramatic things happening to one person in the cast 1 minute, and then finally there's something else happening, and the person who's had something really weird, strange happening to them a few minutes ago is now perfectly normal, and no one's asking why you've acted weird before, because they're worried about the other person. It's just really badly put together and incoherent in places. The other one, which is a little bit along those lines of not making an awful lot of sense, is Paranormal Entity. Now, it's almost copied the name Paranormal Activity. But again, it's a very similar kind of story to Paranormal Activity, and again, poorly put together, and the writer, director is also the son, I should say, who's clearly in his 30s. He's no kid, and it's just very unconvincing. Those two were particularly awful. A film that I was surprised was actually better than I thought it was going to be was The Devil Inside. Now, I'd seen the DVD cover in my local Asda, and it's part of the reason that I did an orgy thing, because I'd seen this cover. It shows this a nun with very strange, very pale grey blue eyes, and it gives you the impression from the cover that she's a major feature in the film. In actual fact, you see her for about 3 seconds as the person who's actually in the film, who's being filmed, walks past her, and this nun looks round. And it's like, I thought, that's ridiculous. You're giving the impression that this nun is going to play a major role in the film because she's on the cover of the DVD, and in actual fact, she's in it for about 3 seconds, never says a word. But again, it's possession type stuff, it's demonic possession, and exorcist type style, but it is actually set in Rome and involves exorcisms. Yeah, it's quite a good film. It's nothing too dramatically awful. It was better than I thought it was going to be. Considering it was panned by the critics, it was actually done rather well for itself. I think it cost something like $9 million to make, and it's made over $100 million at the cinema. So there were films that were quite good and some that were not so good. So definitely worth looking out for is the Atticus Institute and the Funnel Broadcast. Definitely worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing. The other one, of course, we talked about earlier was the Skinwalker one, which I watched. Which again, it's kind of incoherent. One of the things you find in a lot of these found footage films is that they will use the excuse that they've only got some of the footage to put together to make the film, therefore they can get away with it not making a lot of sense sometimes. And it just jumps all over the place, which is a real shame. Again, it's a potentially to be quite a spooky film. There's some good elements in it, but it doesn't hold together very well. It kind of gets a bit lost in itself. But yeah, so I just thought I'd have a quick film review there of stuff I watched when I was suffering from alien visitors all on my own at the time. So
yeah. I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of these shaky camera things. Most of them, to my mind, are a lot of rubbish. But one that I did kind of like was called The Tunnel.
The Tunnel?
Yeah, The Tunnel.
And it was free to download.
And you can watch it on YouTube as well, I think.
Yeah. So it wasn't out there to make...
It was an Australian thing.
Yeah. It wasn't out there to make millions at the box office, because it was all... You could just download it for nothing.
Yeah.
Tunnel. Look into that.
Yeah.
Really sorry, that's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look into the tunnel. That wasn't intended. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like about these films is that anybody can make them. That's the beauty of them in that respect, because they are so incredibly cheap. I mean, as I say, the two that I've recommended both contain elements of found footage shaky cam stuff, but they're not entirely. They're both what you would call mockumentaries, actually. There's a lot of interviews and reenactments and restaging, but it's particularly with the Funnel Broadcast, you gradually get to know more and more of the case itself. That it's not like, like with Blair Witch, this video footage was found, therefore we know for whether they're dead or missing, except this is the video footage that was shot for an outdoor broadcast of a community TV show. The other thing that caught my ear, of course, is it's not a million miles from what we do. This is a community TV show, and we're a community sort of online chat show. So it was that kind of similar idea. I thought,
I've just actually Googled it, because it is actually on like the tunnelmovie.net. but
Okay.
it says due to constant hacking attempts against our site, the official website for the tunnel is down at the moment while they're sorting it out. Unfortunately.
It's a shame that you don't hack something that's giving you something away for nothing.
Yeah, you know.
So, that's not enough for people, is it? Just the fact it's free. Let me just put these little links in as well for you.
Talking about programs and films, just to let you know that coming soon, if you haven't noticed, the Enfield Haunting is coming, and I found out somewhere it's coming in May, but I'm not found what date or anything, unless they've changed their mind. But for those of you who don't know, Sky Living have announced a brand new original drama commission of the Enfield Haunting, a three-part dramatization of the terrifying and bizarre real events that took place in an ordinary house in Enfield during the autumn of 1977. Now, if you remember, we had Guy Lyon Playfair on the programme, on the show.
Yeah, he mentioned it, didn't he?
Yeah, and he mentioned it. It's adapted from his book, This House is Haunted, and the show is a supernatural drama based upon real events surrounding the phenomena and draws on extensive documentation, recordings, and witness statements. The incident remains to this day the most documented account of poltergeist activity in British history. It stars British actor Timothy Spall, OBE apparently. He's going to be playing. His role is.
It's not Guy. It's the other
it's
guy.
Not Guy. I think he's Michael Grouse. Yeah.
He actually looks. He actually looks a bit like him, to be honest.
Yeah. Let me just double check on this on the cast. Meet the cast and characters just to have a look. Yeah. Timothy Spall is going to be Maurice Grouse. Matthew McFadden is going to be Guy Lyon Playfair. Juliet Stevenson is Betty Grouse. Juliet Stevenson, if you've been watching Atlantis, that returned this weekend just gone.
Yeah, she just died.
She just got killed. Medusa turned her into stone. Hopefully she comes back.
There are loads of things there.
She was the Oracle.
Yes, she was the Oracle. So that's coming on.
I thought I recognised that face.
Yes, and as I say, it should be quite interesting. So if you go onto that link a link that I've just placed on the show, and on the KTPF Facebook page, you'll find out about the show, meet the characters, listen to the cast talk about the Enfield Haunting, etc., etc., etc. All sorts of things there, and I'll be interested to see how they dramatise it.
Yes, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? So how would you cope in a haunted house better than these estate agents? Hopefully, I don't know what that's all about.
I've also put links up there to the films I was talking about.
That's the setup.
Yeah. So first look at the teaser trailers. Watch extended scenes. It's got there, and there's quite a bit there, and as I say, might be an interesting program. Let's hope that they've done it some justice.
Yeah, there was
there
was a link I put on the FB page that was a bit too long to read out. Tonight is the mysterious exorcism of Robbie Mannheim. So, anybody that was interested, there is the link for it. It was just too much there for me to go into tonight. I'd use all my observation on the one case.
Yeah, because that's the origins of The Exorcist, isn't it? That story.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, going back to the tunnel, if you want to go to YouTube, it's actually on there, the full movie.
I should look at that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But that goes back to what I was just saying before. But the guy in the Atticus Institute film said, have any of these cases of supposed demonic possession ever been investigated by the US military or US government in terms of what could be used, information could be used from these? I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing they do that, but the fact that I don't know of any case anywhere that's ever been investigated like that suggests that they don't take it very seriously. I mean, one of the other films, The Devil Inside, was talking about, again, these things, they don't just make it up off the top of the head. They're saying that I did the research afterwards, that Catholic Church has actually changed the requirements for an exorcism to make it virtually impossible now for them to carry them out, which is interesting. Does that mean they're either A, giving up the fight against the devil, and the devil's going to win, so what's the point fighting, or B, even the Catholic Church is starting to recognise that maybe they don't really happen. I just thought that was interesting. Again, I did the research and checked that they weren't just making up the film. And no, it was 1990 of the requirements, the level of proof before it would put forward the idea of having an exorcism has increased. Because I think they genuinely recognise there's a real danger here. People genuinely believe in these things and acting accordingly because they want them to be real, rather than being an actual real event. Yeah.
Yes. So, well, I think it's time to call it an end to the show.
Yeah, okay. Scotty Roberts has liked your post even in a few minutes you putting it up.
Do what?
Scotty Roberts has liked your post even in a few minutes you putting it up.
Yes, I noticed.
Next week's show.
So, we will be talking to Scotty Roberts next week.
Excellent. And we'll have to talk about all things occult as you well know, so that should be interesting.
Yes. So, hope.
To see in the night, to measure the spike, to see how cold it's been. I buy my kit so I won't forget the ghosties that I have seen. The Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Services Ghost Store. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk/ghost store.